Environment Committee, Tuesday, March 2nd, 2010, room 1010 City Hall, and it is 9 a.m. in the morning. I'm Councilwoman Jan Perry, Chair of the committee, and let's take our first item.
Good morning, Madam Chair. Rafael Prado with the CLA's office. You have a 6-item agenda, although we got word from the department that they would like to continue item number 4, which has to do with a local bid preference policy for Department of Water and Power. We could hold that or just simply continue it for 30 days.
All right, we're going to continue item 4.
Item 4,
Sorry,
yes.
The wrong chair. Okay. Great. All right, let's start with the first item.
Item number 1 relates to Board of Public Works report relative to the application acceptance of grant funding for the Mar Vista Parkway Green and Stormwater Project. I believe we should have staff from sanitation.
All right, do we have staff here to report on this item? Staff? Staff?
Number 1.
Any staff? Some staff?
If you like, we could.
Doesn't look like we have staff.
Number
Number
1.
one?
Item number 1. If you like, we could jump to number
Yep.
2.
Well, wait, hold on. Dr. Williams has a card on one. Why don't we
Okay.
let Dr. Williams
Okay.
talk, and if they're not here by then we'll continue it. Dr. Williams.
Maybe they're not used to starting on time. Maybe they're not used to starting on time.
Oh, I like to start on time.
New
You
world.
should start on time, because your
Okay.
time is running.
Yeah, me too. Dr. Clyde Williams, El Sereno, Northeast LA. It sounds good. It's a great project, yeah, except for one thing. How was it decided? How was it decided that put it down at the bottom of the basin in District 11 rather than putting it up at the top of the basin? Usually you get your most effective impact upon water quality by conditioning from the top down rather than from the bottom up. This appears to be reflecting a preference of the urban stormwater people to go to the west side. How about the east side? How was this selected? So rather than the individual grant itself, it's the question as to how Bureau of Sanitation got to this point and what was the procedure for allowing other people to also participate. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Do we have anybody else here who needs to report on this item? Let the record reflect that Mr. Koretz has joined us. All right, well, let's
Would you like
move.
to hold this one until the staff shows up, or would you like to?
No, it's fine. Let's move it
Okay.
forward.
Recommend approval.
Yeah.
Item number 2 relates to a report from the Department of Water and Power relative to amendments number 3 and 4 to existing agreement with OpenX Technology International to provide systems and software services. We have staff from DWP.
Okay. Who's first?
Guess that would be me. I'm Kenneth Silver, manager of energy control and extra high voltage stations with Department of Water and Power. This amendment adds additional services to an existing contract with open access technology. The reason for this is our current electronic energy scheduling system, which is the means by which we coordinate and track all of our interchange with other utilities, has reached the end of its useful life. It's a 1970s, 1980s vintage. It's no longer, the software is no longer expandable to meet the current demands, and the hardware is difficult to get parts for. The need for an expanded system is related to the increased interchange of energy in the Western Interconnection, also for the renewable integration, scheduling and moving that power around the system. So, and the reason we're going with this vendor is that we're using their products for other related services, and by using this existing vendor, all of these services will by nature be integrated, so there's no additional integration costs that would burden us.
I have a quick question for you. On average, how much does the department make on an annual basis from these kinds of transactions?
Boy,
I think, yeah, it's in, we put it in the letter. It's, I think last year they made $27 million in the wholesale trading area. And then transactions related to grid liability and power system stability, those don't produce revenue. They're just used to operate. By the way, I'm Brian Cass. I work on the contract for this.
Well, okay, let me ask you this. If there is a situation where we have the opportunity for a surplus, is there any way to take those benefits and transfer them to the ratepayers in the form of a reduced bill? How?
Yeah, anytime we can sell excess energy into the market at a profit, that does return to the department as a profit, and it's that money is used when we're working on our budget. So,
But it's returned to the department probably in the form of a reduction in operating expenses and not to the ratepayers. Is that correct?
It doesn't go directly back to the ratepayers, but when we look at income versus expenses, we factor in that income.
Okay, now let me ask you something, because I know you're going through this process right now. The department is seeking an energy cost adjustment factor, and I've asked several times, going back to last winter or fall, to show the department's efforts to reduce its operating costs. And, you know, I've yet gotten a response. Actually, I haven't gotten a response, and yet the cry for an ECAF adjustment still remains the same. I'm looking at this opportunity here, and I don't want to waste it. And so I'd like to get a response back from the department, and I can make a motion today and go ahead and introduce it and have it come to committee. And what I want to know is, given this scenario, what tracking mechanisms we have in place, what notification we can put in place to require the department to translate any future surplus into a reduction to the ratepayers. And I'm going to put that on the record. You don't have to answer me now. I'm sure you're not even prepared to answer me now. But I want you to know, so when you go back today, you can tell them, because I'm extremely frustrated within the context of this whole ECAP discussion, that I can't get any response back from the department on reduction of operating expenses. So here's another point of leverage for me to say, so if we do get a surplus, I want you not to absorb it into your overall budget to address your operating costs. What I want you to do is to create a pathway so that we can reduce the cost to ratepayers. And you know, the unfortunate thing is one kind of balances the other, because if you reduce your operating costs, your need for an ECAF may be reduced in some way. And so here's another opportunity, and that's the way I see this. So I want to say that to you on the record. And Mr. Cardenas has joined us, so now we have a quorum.
Beyond a quorum.
Beyond a quorum.
Another former state legislator.
Beyond a quorum. Okay. Well, yes, that's right. And 3 people from Sacramento, yes.
4 when he gets
Oh,
here.
yeah, when he gets here, the
Sit
party
down.
really gets started. Okay.
Maybe hazard pay.
That's right. Okay. So those are all my questions. Mr. Koretz, Mr. Cardenas.
Yeah, I know it was said that we had 26 million and change last year, but I think we got 55 million in the 2007-2008 year. So why is there the variation? What's it based on, and what do we expect in the coming year?
I don't know what the forecast is for the upcoming year. The variation is generally due to the market, and depending on what the power demand is, both in Los Angeles and in the other utilities that we can do business with. I know this past summer was a cooler summer. There was less power demand throughout, so I'm speaking more from experience than specific knowledge, but there was likely less opportunity for sales in this past year, or the price difference, regional price differences may have been less. it does vary, it can vary significantly from year to year.
So when there's more demand, we have more opportunity.
If there's more demand out there and we have the surplus, then there's more opportunity to sell.
Great, thank you.
Question?
Mr. Cardenas?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Does this process in any way evaluate what the transmission line capacity is per line and throughout our system? I would imagine it's related.
The studies that we do to determine that transmission capacity is an input into this system.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Uh-huh.
That's one of the existing services is called Oasis, and that is the means by which we're able to sell our excess transmission to other companies and receive income from that. And we have to know how much additional transmission capacity we have, and that's based on studies that we do.
If, you know what, this spurs some questions. I don't want to get off point, especially since we have our DWP city attorney standing in the back. Madam Chair, I'd like to get a report back on a full explanation of what our transmission line history and current capacity is, and whether or not we've actually been meeting capacity on any one of our transmission lines or any sector of our transmission lines as a whole, because that's becoming a bigger part of the picture. And what upsets me is that people don't seem to want to talk about that, yet we talk about the potential of creating another transmission pathway that is at billions of dollars when you get right down to it. And yet everybody mentions that DWP has, it's my understanding, the most fortified transmission line system in the state. Isn't that the case? It's my understanding that we've got more transmission line capacity than PG&E, than Southern California Edison, than any of the energy providers in California. Does anybody know if that's the case? Because I remember when I chaired this committee, somebody said that, and it was mentioned more than once. Unless we've lost capacity or these other providers have increased their capacity tremendously.
Yeah. Over the years, the department has constructed a very expansive transmission system in order to be able to access resources, for economic resources, and also to be able to exchange energy with other utilities. So we do have, I don't know what the exact percentages are or how we measure to the other utilities, but we do have a very extensive transmission network. But our transmission network doesn't always go to the areas where future development may be.
Sure, and that should be part of the report back, as to what our current needs seem to be, what our future needs seem to be, and more importantly, why is it that we try to justify one particular transmission line when we're looking at one particular technology in a particular area in the southwestern United States or the western United States. That's my point, Madam Chair. We get caught up in focusing on one particular project or one particular, like thermal energy down south, and then all of a sudden we start talking about, well, you know, we think we can put together a transmission line there, a pathway, which is a long, arduous process, expensive process, and yet at the same time, we never have the discussion in light of those kinds of discussions as to where do we sit? Do we have a bunch of transmission lines that are less than 50% capacity, that are underutilized? Do we have transmission lines that never exceed 70, 80%, even on our most difficult times? I mean, I've never heard that discussion, but then again, they never offered, but as far as I know, we've never asked as a council. So I'd like a report back on the history of our transmission line system, the current capacities, and what seems to be the ideas or the proposals that the department is contemplating at this time.
All right, that'll be request, and what when you...
60 days, I'd like it to be thorough. 30 days, they'll come in and give us a verbal. I want to see some documents. I want to see, some history. I want to see, some facts behind what the presentation has to offer. Okay.
Anyone else? All right, so that'll be the order. Oh, Mr. Corey.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just to build upon Mr. Cardenas's point, you're asking for historical information, but also
Correct.
you're asking for
And then
projections of
projections,
future
exactly.
demands, geographical areas of demand, different transmission needs that may be required because of our renewable energy
Exactly.
mandates and all of that together.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, okay, good.
Okay.
Recommend approve on item number 2.
Yes, subject to,
Those additional report backs.
yeah.
The,
And
okay.
I am going to do my request in the form of a motion.
Okay.
And then have it come back. I don't know. Mr. CLA, Mr. Krikorian's asked an interesting question about holding the contract till then. I think I'm talking about a bigger issue, and it's the ECAP, trying to link the two. Maybe the CAO can shed some light on that, and then, actually, I should probably, city attorney up here, oh, back there.
Olivia Sevisval-Lunga from the CAO's office. I actually made a field trip to this transmission section, and this actually manages the entire city of Los Angeles system. And the reason why it's required, and they started on this 4-phase project, and this is the 4th phase, is to update what the Western Energy Council requires of all the 26 transmission systems that trade within the Western region. And they have to be able to control what goes in and out of the system, and it's really a requirement, and it's not really for any new things coming on board. It's just to operate what's already existing in the city of Los Angeles. Right now, I've been down there, and they're doing it manually, or they're doing it in a very antiquated, they have an antiquated computer system that they really, really have to do double work. This is just to bring them up to the 21st century in terms of trying to communicate with the Western Energy Council. So this is just to meet the requirements. So I recommend that you do approve this, but still require the report backs that would update us on where we stand on our transmission lines.
Mr. CLA, can we get somebody from DWP to state that on the record, what you just shared?
Certainly. 30 days. Certainly, we just,
I'm sorry, what's the request?
The report backs.
Okay, we will report back on it within 30 days, request the transmission utilization.
And my question.
Oh, and in response to your question about
tracking mechanism.
the
Surplus.
tracking mechanism for the surplus energy back to the ratepayers.
To the ratepayers, the form of reduced bills.
Did you want me to state completely like that? Okay. For tracking a mechanism for having the income from the surplus sales tracked back to the ratepayers
In the form of reduced bills.
in the form of reduced bills.
Okay.
Thank you for that, Madam Chair. Just to take one step back, if I may. This system enables you, it facilitates interoperability with the rest of the WEC, correct?
That's correct.
It also assists with your balancing within the balancing authority.
Right.
Okay. Does it also help facilitate the advent of smart grid technology for the future? Does it play any role in that?
I'm Ali Morabi, manager of power system. It basically will eventually, because the energy control center where everything resides is where these systems are, and our dispatch basically at the end of the day is what smart grid means, where we can have a view of the entire system, including the ties to other utilities. So yes, the answer is all of these systems eventually will be part of our smart grid.
So then, have you explored the potential availability of ARA smart grid funding to help reimburse DWP for some of these costs?
The smart grid demo grant that we received from the federal government, in fact, I'm the manager of that one too. We have given them the plan, it doesn't include this kind of tools. It's a demonstration grant, but at the end of the day, about 2-3 years down the road, as the demo grant comes up, there'll be a tie between what we discover during the demo and what we are already investing in, which is, this would be one of them.
So can you not then build in some of these contract costs into that ARA budget?
In the demo grant, no, because it's a demonstration grant. They won't allow investments into the demonstration grant. This is the DOE requirement. But the systems that are developed during the demo can definitely tie into our investments. Does that answer that? I'm not sure.
It's fine. Okay,
Okay, great.
thank you.
All right,
Item number 3,
yes.
DWP report relative to an agreement with KEMA Incorporated to provide Department with consulting services for their substation automation project. We have staff from Water and Power as well.
Ali Murabi, Power System Manager on the substation automation. Basically, this, we are automating the, did you want to? Okay. We are automating our 196 substations that are part of the system between everything that happens between the generation, transmission, and the customer. These substations are all sitting in the middle. There are 196 of those, and they're anywhere from 70 to 30 years old. And we need to upgrade them as far as hardware, wiring, and then using electronics, and then being able to talk to other systems, including the Energy Control Center. So that's what this consultant is used for, to come in and bring us a lot of the assistance we need in the implementation of the new technology, and then transfer the knowledge to DWP.
Why is the department seeking to hire KEMA instead of the previous contractor? And what's the difference between KEMA and the previous contractor?
The previous contract, KEMA is an independent consultant. They don't have any interest in implementation. The previous contractor is actually implementing the system. And this is an independent view, and that's why KEMA is selected. They are not related to any implementers. We went through the RFP process, and basically they were selected through the RFP process.
Now, on the Phase 2 portion of the project, I guess there's a need now for an additional 2 years, so cumulatively the project's up to 7 years now. Why a need for more time?
One reason was budgeting. When the budgeting was looked at, we went from 5 years to 7 years.
What do you mean, that you didn't have as much money as
Correct.
you had anticipated?
That's what turned out.
Somebody behind you.
Oh.
You say that into the mic.
Yeah, we also looked at how many stations per month we can handle, because every time we upgrade a station or modify it, we may have to take some of the power lines down, so we also have to look at that factor.
Okay, well, when I look back at Phase 1, the project was planned to upgrade 179 stations, and I think that was an original agreement under Convergent, but only 119 stations were upgraded, so what happened to the rest?
There was an agreement made between the department and Convergent to stop at 120 and then look at this technology that's available now. That phase of the project was somewhere around 7 years, and then now we have the new phase to look at. Additionally, we have added 27 stations since about 7-8 years ago, so it's now a total of 196. And then the third reason was we have to go back and also upgrade what we have upgraded already. It's a technological reason now, because we're using a lot of the new technologies, and as every few years we have to go back and look at it again. It's kind of like a PC. Every 2-3 years you have to look at it again.
Is it possible for the department to just receive training from KEMA so they can complete the project without KEMA's hands-on assistance?
This is our goal. We definitely are looking at the knowledge transfer for them to go during the next 3 to 5 years, transfer the knowledge to DWP team. We have a project team working side by side with KEMA, and then they'll transfer the knowledge. So basically, the answer is yes. After the 5-year period, KEMA shouldn't be needed.
Okay, so are you on a timeline for that?
On this contract for 5 years, and then
And,
Well,
Mr. Tardy?
Could I add something? My name is Robert Roth, CAO's office. Regarding the timeline issue, there is an issue of complying with the regulations and the monetary fines, which are written in the report. It could be up from $1,000 to $1 million a day per equipment. So the department does have
Incentives.
a need.
Get off the dole.
That's true.
Okay.
And what's that timeline of the,
Mr. Cardenas.
where those potential fines kick in?
basically, it's called the Critical Infrastructure Protection Program. This is by NERC, FERC, and then WEC. And July of 2010, we have to be what they call audibly compliant. So basically, after July 1, they can come in and look at our system and then look at the fines. And we've been already going through this for the past 3 years to implement the critical infrastructure protection.
Now, I'm looking at the fact that the original contract was 179 substations, and that apparently 119 were completed with approximately $60 million. And we're looking to finish off the job and actually go back and modernize some of the substations in phase 1, yet it's only 4.5 million. The ratios just don't seem to make sense.
This is the consulting services only. There is another RFP on the street, and we're evaluating right now, which is bringing the construction, actually. So that will be the one that probably end up being in the $100 million range. We're not
Okay.
sure yet.
So the original expenditures were approximately $60 million, but how much of that was consulting?
I can't remember. I mean, way back I wasn't part of this, but there was some small portion of that also for consulting. Basically developing the RFP, evaluating it, assisting the department, and then the department forces took over, basically.
Okay. So this is part of about $150 million project when all is said and done?
Pretty much, yes. The new RFP is being looked at right now, but will be in that range.
But FERC is allowed to come in and inspect starting July 1st of this year?
Yes.
So do we have the ability to, or does FERC look at the ones that have been converted and upgraded first, or can they come into town and just go look at whichever station they want? And then we say, well, why are you looking at that one? We've got, 120 of them converted, and you're looking at one of the last 60 that aren't converted yet.
They are allowed to look at the ones that haven't been converted. We have a good reason of how they're protected now, and that's good enough for.
So the minimum has been applied to each one of our substations, the minimum, and some of them have been fully upgraded.
Correct.
And the only thing that left with some of them that have been fully upgraded is technology upgrades beyond that. Just because the technology when we upgraded last time wasn't there today, or
For example, just Windows 2000 versus
software
Hotmail.
as a perfect example.
Exactly.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, no more questions on that item. Let's move to approve, and the next item.
Next item, item number 4, Madam Chair, we request a continuance for 30 days at the request of the department. So that leaves you with item 5 and 6, which you could hear jointly. They both relate to eminent domain settlements with
Yeah, and
Caltrans.
Dr. Williams, I know you put in a card on for it's continued, so I'll come, he'll be here.
You sure? We hardly see you around here.
Yeah.
You sure you might be here?
5 and 6.
5 and 6.
Now, Mr. CLA, you said something about There may not be a need for closed session if,
Yes. It simply, depending on the questions that are raised, there may not be a need for a closed session on these items. We'll leave that discretion to the city attorney and your committee.
You, as the client, have the ability to take us into closed session if it becomes obvious that we need to have more sensitive discussions. All I had simply advised the clerk was that these are fairly straightforward settlements on eminent domain cases, and if you wish, we can hear them in open session. The two items, items 5 and 6, are both eminent domain cases that were brought against the department by Caltrans. They relate to an improvement of an off-ramp or transition road for Highway 170. The first one, item 5, is for a highway easement and a temporary construction easement, and staff has reviewed the Caltrans appraisal and summary that was submitted to us for $274,542 and recommends approval of the settlement on that basis. The second item, item 6, is also an eminent domain case, and it's only an aerial easement. It is to take the off-ramp from a higher road down to ground level, and it is a small amount of $21,000. They originally offered us $2,500. We reappraised and asked for $22,000. We settled at $21,000.
okay, is this consistent with market rate?
I'm sorry?
Consistent with market rate?
Yes.
Okay. Mr. Cardenas?
In what years did these issues take place?
The construction on these are complete. They obtained possession. This was filed. These were both filed. Pardon me.
Well, let me cut to the chase.
February of 09.
We have 3 former state legislators present. We wouldn't have to recuse ourselves because we were actually the policymakers at the state level, and now we're involved in voting on I'm kind of joking, but I'm kind of curious as to whether or not that applies. It's kind of like, but Bernard Parks, for example, has to recuse himself sometimes when there's lawsuits. But he was the direct administrator of that department, where the legislature is a bit distant, but they are the policy-making body overseeing Caltrans.
Caltrans also, if I recall, has a board that oversees and makes these decisions as the legislative body for eminent domain. Their resolutions of necessity are passed by the California Transportation Commission. So the legislature's involvement in that, I believe, would be policy and legislating the statutes that control the process.
And also the legislature wouldn't have seen this and taken a vote on these matters.
No.
We hope. We don't think.
Well, they wouldn't take vote on whether to commence eminent domain and prosecute this
Perhaps
lawsuit.
on the funding to the department for generic eminent domain, but not specific projects.
I would just say it would probably be a general funding issues, and it might be a line item in the budget, but I'm way beyond my
But not
expertise
the
on that.
specifics. Yeah.
Okay.
Just curious, because it says the people of the state of California and the city of Los Angeles. And a few of us have been on both sides of that.
Understood.
All right. All right, motion to approve.
5 and 6.
5 and 6. All right, public comment. Dr. Williams, I cannot believe he left us. Okay. All right, Dr. Williams filled out a public comment card, but I guess...
Stevie's waiting. Maybe he thought we were going to close
Yeah.
this.
Yeah, can you see if Dr. Williams is out there before we adjourn?
Check to see if Dr. Williams is there, whoever.
Nope, no good. All right.
Thank you.
This is the time for public comment for items that are not on the agenda. Please feel free to come forward. If not, the meeting is adjourned.
Thank you.